Genetic diversity and breed loss. Analyzed using the OLAP theory of change. Holistically defining the problem, in terms of animal health, a decrease in genetic diversity, a cause and result of inbreeding, leads to congenital abnormalities. Animals lose their ability to adapt to stresses and shocks and therefore face breed loss or extinction. Regarding society, the human race tends to favor profit over preservation and are thus inclined toward unsustainable behaviors that have detrimental consequences. Animal health challenges mentioned previously pose a significant financial burden on society, the result of expenses incurred in the care of animals and ultimately their loss. This burden is particularly felt in rural communities. Concerning the environment, interdependence of organisms are a key feature within ecosystems. Thus, factors such as mass animal production, which results in overgrazing as well as breed loss, disrupts this interdependence and therefore upsets ecosystem balance. Climate change due to a decrease in vegetation causes an increased greenhouse effect.
These are the groups who have caused, are subsequently affected, and will be involved in resolving the problems presented by a decrease in genetic diversity and breed loss, including commercial and subsistence farmers, pet owners, national parks, animal breeders and breeders associations, veterinarians and animal welfare associations, the government at a local, provincial and national level, consumers, and other experts including geneticists, conservationists and land planners.
At a local level, we'd like to implement education like teaching in school. We want to change the narrative that purebreds are not necessarily the better breed. We want to enforce regulations that are already in place and establishment of standardization by the SPCA and breeders associations. We'd also like to recruit experts required to address the problem. At a regional and national level, we want to establish reporting systems, education, media exposure, revision of the national standards and breeding programs. At a global level, we want to implement research involving other countries. We want to increase our genetic pool by importing genetics. We want to have a global record. We want to address the issue worldwide and have global investments and funding so that we can further our implementation.
Regarding policy, we want the implementation of regulations that are already in place related to animal preservation, land usage and sustainable development. We also want to sustain surveillance systems. Regarding advocacy, we want to approach it via a top-down and bottom-up approach, targeting farmers, breeders and pet owners or owners-to-be, possible by using social media, and also adopt, don't shop. Regarding financing, we want fines to be issued for non-compliance via the government, and also from national parks, NGOs and investors.
Organizational development, implementation and sectoral integration is the second pathway needed for change. Workshops for skills training must be implemented, as well as awareness using conferences and congresses, and this must involve all stakeholders to create a multi-sectoral approach. Communication is very important, especially between regulatory bodies and licensing of breeding. This must all be used for the protection of conservation areas.
The third pathway of change involves data evidence, education and knowledge exchange. Education is needed for all relevant parties on the devastating effects of unsustainability and ways in which genetic diversity can be established. Surveillance and monitoring of current practices should be implemented. In terms of research, data collection and innovative solutions is needed. Communication of research undertaken is needed to allow for knowledge exchange on all levels, including making research more readily available.
When we take a look at the possible barriers that may inhibit progressing towards the desired outcomes, they include the lack of communication and collaboration between the stakeholders, the cultural differences and ethical considerations that exist, insufficient education, the misallocation of funding and the lack thereof, and then lastly, illegal activities like poaching that takes place. The assumptions necessary to achieve the outcomes include the idea that genetic diversity is a good thing, while breed loss is bad. We are assuming that funding will be provided and that there is support from vets as well as the public, and that they are willing to enable this change and comply with it. We are also assuming that there are parameters in place for disease control.
In the short term, we would need resistance from pet owners, farmers and breeders, education initiatives, receive support, collaboration of stakeholders and implementation of relevant policy. In the medium term, we would need mindset change, initial results, and evaluation of measures currently employed. In the long term, however, we would need policy changes, increased interest in initiatives aimed at redress, increased research and funding, increased experts in relevant fields, results, global recognition of improvement, and adaptation and implementation of methods used in South Africa and other settings.